From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is Ag Day.
A season of extremes.
Yields have been all over the board, due to drought conditions followed by flooding conditions in the month of August.
We head to Louisiana for a look at the state's cotton crop. Mississippi River reality check, the stark change in this important waterway as a lack of feed and water amid drought conditions weighs on beef producers in the plains.
The bottom line is numbers are getting tighter.
The impact dry conditions are having on prices, moving ag products right now on Ag Day. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Some parts of the country are now drier than it was during the Dust Bowl. And the latest drought monitor shows conditions continue to expand. 77% of the contiguous United States is now in some level of drought or dryness. The last time it was that high was September of 2012. The drought monitor showing conditions continuing to worsen, more than half of the country now in some level of drought. Now, some of that expansion happening in the Midwest, Mid-South, and South, impacting water levels in many of the major rivers. The eastern seaboard seeing some improvement following Hurricane Ian. But take a look at this from the Oklahoma Mesonet. It's looking at the departure from normal for rainfall between June 11th and October 5th. That's now the driest June to October stretch in at least 100 years and drier than the Dust Bowl, with some areas a foot behind normal for precipitation. That has cattle and livestock operators worried about the future as they sort fall numbers. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with the latest on the situation in the Southern Plains.
Clinton, a prolonged drought in the Southern Plains has continued to mean deeper culling and liquidation of the cattle herd. That's having an impact on the fall cattle run, and market experts say it should mean some stronger cattle prices once we get through the extra near-term tonnage on the market. With the deepening drought in the Southern Plains, cattle producers have continued to liquidate the herd due to the lack of feed and water, which will mean a smaller fall run.
I just looked at some numbers back from the 1st of April to current. We're running about 9.5% cow liquidation above a year ago.
The volume of feeder cattle through Oklahoma auctions since July 1 is up about 20% nearly. And the proportion of those that are over 600 pounds is way below normal.
So that means less supply. However, with relatively little prospect for wheat pastures this fall, the demand for stocker cattle is also down, with the exception of heavier weight feeders, which are generally more sought after by feedlots this time of year. So Peel says that should support cattle prices going into the fourth quarter.
The bottom line is numbers are getting tighter. We're expecting, all of these feeder supplies generally to start really showing some tightness. And so I think there's a fair chance before the fourth quarter is over that we'll see perhaps the highest prices of the year happen right at the end of the year.
Schultz says one of the caveats is cattle slaughter needs to come down from the current 126,000 to 128,000 head daily.
But maybe I'm just getting a little bit too antsy on that, but I was hoping that we would already be into that mode of getting down, say, 125,000 head of cattle on a daily basis is what you want to start seeing.
Even then, he's not sure live cattle futures will take out the contract highs set September 20th.
And I just want to be a little bit more cautious. So I'm still looking for something maybe $2.5 higher from where we're currently trading, which I think maybe I'm going to start having to look at some type of protection.
The other factor he's watching is beef demand if recessionary fears continue, which could offset lower supply in the fourth quarter. Funds have liquidated some of their long positions since the contract highs were set in live cattle in September. However, those chart areas were 156.19 on the Feb contract, 159.65 on the April, and 155.78 basis the June. So those are the areas that we'll be watching.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And the drought seems to be factoring into packer margins right now as producers are forced to bring a lot of cattle to market sooner. Drovers reporting the combination of rising cattle prices and declining wholesale beef prices are eroding the historic packer margins of a year ago to just about $21 per head right now. Now you can see that in the latest Sterling Beef Profit Tracker. Feed yards saw average profits of $58 per head for the week last week. Further down, you see the estimated beef packer margins, down $46 per head from the previous week, but down $776 per head from margins a year ago. Feed costs for cattle marketed last week averaged $596 a head. That's up $91 from last year. And cattle slaughter, it was up 25,000 head from the same week last year.
AgDay Weather, brought to you by AGI Nico. AGI Nico dryers have an average of 1 to 2 pounds heavier test weight per bushel than screen dryers. They can also save you 30% on average in fuel savings. That's money in your pocket. Visit aggrowth.com/Nico for more information.
Now, we've been telling you about this, low water levels on the Mississippi due to drought and the impact it's having on moving grain down the river. These pictures from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers tell the story. On the left, June 26, 2019, a look at the river when it was at 16 feet in New Orleans. On the right, how the river looks today, where the water is measuring slightly above 3 feet. The river now at its lowest level in a decade, creating a force majeure for some barge lines, warning they may not be able to make good on contracted deliveries. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us now with more on the drought and how the root zone moisture map factors in.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. We've got another look here at our newest root zone moisture map, where we've got some damper conditions in the Ohio Valley down towards parts of the Gulf Coast, but right through the middle of the country, we haven't seen a lot of rain over the past couple of weeks, and that drought really starting to expand. The Mississippi River levels are really dropping, and they are almost 7 feet below some of those gauges that are on the river. And this is all because of that drought that is continuing to kind of expand upstream there, right in the middle part of the country, parts of the Corn Belt, really dealing with that drought. And you can see it here over the last week, and now this week, still extremely dry. Places like Oklahoma, Kansas, up into Nebraska, and all of that area kind of feeds right on into the Mississippi River. So those levels are going to continue to drop, which could be a problem for shipping along the Mississippi over the next couple of months. And we are looking at a hard freeze for not only this morning, but the next few mornings as that cooler air filters on in, something we'll continue to track right here on Ag Day. And a beautiful start to the day, meteorologist Mark Torello capturing this stunning sunrise from Endicott, New York. This is a terrific view of the town located along the Susquehanna River. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Win the Furrow programming on Ag Day is brought to you by In-Furrow Leader FMC. Visit your FMC retailer or infurrow.ag.fmc.com to learn more.
Even as combines roll, it's not too early to start thinking about next season. Today, Missy Bauer wraps up our Win the Furrow focus for the week with a focus on the furrow.
So when we think about winning the furrow, another thing I really think about is, what's that furrow look like? I'm dropping the seed down in the bottom of this furrow, and then I'm closing it back up. And what I want ideally is for every one of these seeds, when they start to germinate, to fire off at the same time. So we know it's going to take moisture to make that process happen. This seed is going to imbibe water. It's going to get that water from the soil around there. How uniform the soil around this seed is compared to the next seed is really what starts the beginning of our uniformity process. So a lot of settings on the planter can affect that. So if I don't have enough down pressure on the planter to keep my row unit at that consistent planting depth, as a rule of thumb, we're trying to plant it 2 inches deep. But if my planter's back there bouncing along because I don't have enough down pressure, I'm going to get a lot of those floaters up there at 1.5 inches, and I'm not going to have that uniformity. Maybe your gauge wheels aren't set right on the planter. If your gauge wheels are set too loose, we get dry soil actually coming into the furrow. So we're trying to put our seed in good moisture, yet we got dry soil coming in there. So anything with that planting pass can have effects on that. Again, from the down pressure settings, your gauge wheels, your types of closing wheels that you have on there, and then still your planting speed. Planting speed's a big part of uniformity. We got to stay slow enough to maintain that row unit running smooth. As soon as that row unit gets to bounce, then again, we're going to have troubles with that uniformity. So think about the goal being every one of these seeds in that furrow to germinate, start the germination process at the same time. It's got to be uniform soil around there to make that happen.
All right, thanks, Missy. Grains contracted on Thursday. We have the latest on what markets are watching now, coming up next. And later, cotton may not be king in Louisiana, but farmers were hoping for a big crop this year. What they're seeing in the fields ahead of harvest in the country. Tyson Foods is moving around 1,000 corporate jobs from Illinois and South Dakota to its headquarters in Springdale, Arkansas. The company says the relocations will start early next year. It says no layoffs are planned. Tyson Foods says having employees in one location will help with collaboration and decision making. The move is another blow for Chicago, which has also seen Boeing and Caterpillar relocate their headquarters this year. The markets on Thursday had new export numbers to digest, and the news wasn't good, especially for corn. Michelle Rook is back with more on what that's doing to prices.
Joining us with market analysis, Ted Seifert with Zaner Ag Hedge. A down day in the grains on Thursday, Ted, and it seemed like poor exports and the higher dollar kind of combined to press most of the markets.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. And, poor exports, especially poor in corn, combined with a higher dollar. I mean, the two are related, so that's definitely not what you want to see. This is the time of year where we would expect to see some pretty decent export sales in soybeans and even corn too. And it was just so far away from that. Now, for soybeans, you understand that Argentina stole a lot of our business in the month of September because of their favorable interest or favorable exchange rate that they were offering. So maybe countries like China they're good for now. That's not a good thing for us with the dollar going higher. If China's not buying, despite the fact that they have good crush margins, well, this is our export window. We need to be having this now, and it's just not happening.
Yeah.
It also says that China just doesn't have a sense of urgency to come in and buy our soybeans. We're a little bit worried about Argentinian weather, but they don't seem to be. So, for now, yeah, we can talk about the supply side until we're blue in the face. But if the demand's not there, well, that's a problem.
Right, and the low water levels on the Mississippi River are not helping with that situation either. But let's talk about technicals on corn and soybeans. We went down, held $13.50 on November beans. Where do we need to hold in both of these markets, though?
Well, that $13.50 is a big psychological area for the soybeans, but it's also in the middle of a gap that we've had since July. That gap closure, by the way, would be $13.49.25, so we didn't quite close that gap. Some people would argue that's fairly bullish, and we did have a halfway decent bounce off of it towards the end of the day. But if we do close that gap and get through it, then $13.22 is the next order of business to the downside. But if we can stage a bounce, $13.90 is a possibility. For corn, the big line in the sand, we've been trading sideways in corn for a little while now, but the big line in the sand to the downside is 662.5. If we break through that, there's a fairly sizable correction potentially in store for the corn. But if we hold it, the $7 has been the top. We just kind of keep ping-ponging in between. So I don't know what's going to happen and what sort of direction we're going to need to get for the corn, or what sort of news we're going to need to move it to one side or the other.
All right, well, thanks for your analysis. That is Ted Seifert with Zaner Ag Hedge. More Ag Day coming up.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zaner Ag Hedge at 312-277-0113. Ag Day is brought to you by Farm Shop MFG. Did you know that 20% of stored corn is often overventilated by 3 points of moisture? On 100,000 bushels, that's a whole semi-load. Stop this problem for less with the End Zone for Corn from Farm Shop MFG. Specially priced at $1,800 per unit while supplies last.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, taking a look at where this cool air, I guess cold air, is going to be arriving here in the northern plains.
Oh yeah, and when we talk about a hard freeze in the northern plains, upper Midwest, we're talking about temperatures at or below that freezing mark, and we're even going to see this kind of dip a little bit farther into the Ohio Valley heading into tomorrow and the weekend. And you can see heading through this morning that hard freeze possible across especially parts of Montana, North Dakota, even making it down into South Dakota, but northern parts of Minnesota as well. This is going to continue to move to the south, either a light freeze or area-wide frost, even possible all the way down into northern Indiana, northern Illinois, and even into northwest Ohio and Michigan as well. That's Saturday morning, and that cooler air continues to filter on towards the east coast as far south as northern Virginia, parts of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, even into the northeast. Could be dealing with a freeze or even area-wide area-wide frost heading into Sunday morning. Once the cool air gets out of here, we'll get a little bit warmer. But take a look at the temperatures for today. Again, a little bit cooler as that cooler air starts to filter in. Northern Plains, Great Lakes as well. Temperatures only in the 50s for places like Chicago, even back to Omaha and Denver, Rapid City, Bismarck, and then still dealing with the 80s, very humid conditions in the south. That cooler air continues to filter on through. Temperatures in the mid-30s for most of the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley. You see that area-wide frost tomorrow morning, and still by tomorrow afternoon, still warm in the south, but cooler, more fall-like air settling in from the Ohio Valley and on into the Great Lakes. And this is why we've got a high-pressure system moving on in, and on the northern side of that, we've got the cooler air filtering in as well. That's all behind this cold front that's really going to push off the East Coast as we head towards the day on Saturday. We'll get a few more showers and storms back in the southwest as we're heading through the end of the weekend, but high pressure going to keep the really lower 48 mostly clear as we head really through the next couple of days and over the weekend. It's not until the middle part of next week where we really start to see more rain really starting to move on in to the parts of the Four Corners and the southwest. That could help this drought monitor, but again, still extremely dry here in the center of the country. We'll have to wait for more rain towards the end of next week in those parts, and we'll be tracking that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Mansfield, Ohio, a chance of showers, a high near 50 degrees. Heading towards Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, mostly cloudy with a chance of a shower, a high of 72 degrees, and 58 degrees in Sydney, Montana. It's going to be sunny and cool.
Pennsylvania State Police are announcing animal cruelty charges against 11 people for alleged animal abuse at 7 turkey farms across the central and southeastern part of the state. State police say the suspects were caught on camera kicking, stomping, and beating turkeys. They were employed by Plainville Farms. The investigation began back in August of last year because of a complaint filed by PETA. Now you're looking at still pictures captured from video taken by an undercover person with that organization. Investigators say the workers were responsible for capturing and crating turkeys destined for slaughter. The charges include 6 felony counts of aggravated cruelty to animals along with 76 misdemeanor counts. The company's COO says they have fired the employees implicated and have started using stationary and body cameras during the catching process. The battle over climate policy in the Netherlands continues. An independent appointed mediator has released a 58-page report. Now, it includes suggestions on how the Dutch government should handle the dispute around plans to drastically cut emissions of nitrogen and ammonia. The mediator is saying the government should buy out what he labels as the heaviest polluters, adding that it is necessary in the very short term to emit much less nitrogen, and he sees no other way. Now, it's feared the report could reignite protests, which previously saw farmers shut down major roadways. Coming up, big things were expected out of Louisiana's cotton crop this year, but what are farmers there seeing as harvest nears? We have an update next. Louisiana cotton farmers increased acres significantly this year because of climbing prices, but as LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux reports, some producers may be somewhat disappointed with the results of the crop.
Blue skies and white cotton have been common sights across the Louisiana cotton belt, but it was the wet, dark skies of August that rained on many Louisiana cotton farmers' parade this year. Planting conditions were ideal in May, but June turned into a drought followed by floods in August, which has caused yields to suffer.
Yields have been all over the board, due to drought conditions followed by flooding conditions in the month of August. So I've heard yields anywhere ranging from 600 to 1,200 pounds.
1,200 pounds per acre would be a bountiful number, but Foster doesn't expect the state totals to come close to that.
Our state average lint yield was 960 pounds last year. I think we'll be close to that, if not maybe a little below that this year.
Carol Pennell Allison and Foster were examining fields in Franklin Parish where roughly 10% of the state's cotton is grown. Irrigation helped the crop during the drought, but nothing could protect it from the 20 inches of rain during August.
There's a lot of damage in terms of the bottom bowls that were beginning to open. We've got a lot of hard lock. We've got a lot of just sort of pathogen damage, fungi, staining of that lint. They use the seed to offset the cost of ginning. And so if the quality of seed's off or the number of seed, then that may mean that they will actually have to pay for some of those ginning costs.
The August rain not only hurt cotton in the area, but it caused significant damage to soybeans. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. Thanks for watching. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.